My father always said to me, one thing I remember from my childhood, my father would come and say, you will amount to nothing.
Hi, hello, how are you? And welcome to the first episode of my podcast. Yes, another bloke from Southwest London with a podcast. I apologise. But I'm not doing it for views. I'm not really doing it to make money. It's just I want to have a bank of content, which is, thoughts, stories, ideas from people that I find interesting. Now, this first episode is particularly meaningful to me because it's actually with my mum. Now, if you're at a crossroads in your career looking down the barrel of having to start again, I feel like this podcast would be particularly helpful to you. If you're feeling isolated or unsupported, again, this might be really interesting for you. If you've been told that you won't amount to anything, that you won't ever be successful, this might be helpful for you. If you find relatability in just some of Mum's journey and it gives you the extra 1% confidence or the ability to persevere slightly longer, then I'm happy. So here's the rest of it.
So you'd be gone from before we woke up to after we went to sleep for 15 years. And then I went to boarding school, he went to boarding school. And again, we didn't see you.
Makes me look like a really bad mother.
No, but you got the job done, didn't you?
I did. I was actually really, in those days, I was really well organized. One of the most important things was actually making sure the food is there, making sure the shopping is done, the house is clean, and you have everything that you need. But presents-wise, yeah, that was missing.
Yeah, but again, I'm not viewing this as as a bad thing at all because again, I was talking to somebody just yesterday about how as entrepreneurs sometimes it can be very hard to motivate yourself. But then I look at what you were doing, and when we did come home from boarding school, we would then see you scream at 4-5 a.m. working on the computer, typing like this. I was like, what are you screaming about? And you're going, I've just lost 4 days worth of work because you don't know where to save stuff. You didn't know how to save stuff.
I couldn't use the computer, really. I taught myself how to use the computer, and I did it the hard way.
But
Really
where did the work ethic come from? Because it's not normal to be able to, I think for over a period of 10 years, you'd take off 4 or 5 days a year. No weekends, no nothing, 16 hours a day, one meal a day. And, nowadays entrepreneurs and business owners are struggling to motivate themselves to do the things they don't want to do. But then I look at what you did and I'm just trying to figure out, where did that come from?
I don't think it was hard motivating myself. I think it's something that I've always done as a child. So even when I was like 14 years old, I went out to work. I remember I was working in MFI. I was at school.
They still got that discount on.
Yeah, it's like, so I was actually, from a very early age, I knew if I wanted something in life, I had to work for it. And if I didn't work for it, I wasn't getting it. So nobody ever gave me any money or, I don't even remember my father saying, oh, here's some money, go and buy something. It was like, if I wanted to buy something, go and earn the money and then buy it. So I always had that work ethic that if I wanted something in life, I had to work for it. And that meant that whatever sacrifices I had to make, they weren't sacrifices to me. I never thought about it like that. And even now when you're saying you did all this, I have to think, did I do all that? Because it was just normal routine for me. So I don't know what the big deal was.
So when you were young, we talk a few little bits and bobs about when you were young, but what was it like in Leicester aged 15, 16?
It was tough. So don't think I had an easy upbringing. It was tough. There were 5 children. Mum was working 3 jobs. Father was clueless, absolutely clueless, didn't engage with the family at all. So this mother that was actually really overworked left the kids to look after each other. So we didn't know any different. And we were just like, if you say to me, were you unhappy? I would say no, we were happy because we didn't know anything else. And later, and all of us kids, like I brought the young ones up, and I was only like 12, 13. We didn't know any different.
And then when you started, so you left school, O-levels.
I get it. Because my mother was never there, I was never there, so I didn't think anything wrong. Because, my mother was never there. She would go to the hospital, do cleaning job. Then we had an off license. She would come in, help out with the off license. She had 5 kids to cook for. Then about 8 o'clock, she'd leave home and she'd go to Bobby restaurant to actually cook food. Mother was never back till about 11 o'clock. 7 o'clock, she was actually in hospital. So I never saw her. And I did the same to my kids. Oh my God.
But I don't view that as a bad thing at all, because what we all saw was somebody without any formal education being
Yeah,
successful through
yeah.
brute force.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the fact that you weren't making mistakes. You haven't become successful from making consistent right choices. It's you worked so hard it counteracted any lack that you had.
One thing that was really important for me is that my mother always made sure we were well fed, right? So that's
Yeah,
why
yeah.
I think it was ingrained that, I would always feed my kids well, and our house was always well kept. So that was, I think I followed the pattern.
Funny, eh?
And I'm only realizing it now.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so you went out into working world. Did you ever think, because you tell us that how different your personality was, meek, timid,
Yeah.
quiet. Did you ever think you would be anything?
My father always said to me, one thing I remember from my childhood, my father would come and say, "You will amount to nothing." And I grew up with that, this father who I looked up to saying to me, "You'll amount to nothing." And my attitude was, I've never said anything because I was really meek. But one thing I had in myself was, I'll show you one day. I'll show you. And I think it's this "I'll show you" is what made me work so hard to prove to him, and even my relatives would look down on me because I didn't have a degree, I didn't have education behind me. So they would all be like, "Oh yeah, she's gonna just amount to nothing." And you know what? The same relatives look up to me now and say, "Oh my God, so proud of what you've done, so proud of what you're doing." But I'm like, I was nicer before. I was actually really nice before, where I've turned into somebody now who actually just says no if she feels like it, and I do things if I want to do. So before it wasn't like that, So I have to turn around and say, I have changed. I believe that I was nicer before, but what led me to change was that people's uh, people's almost like view of me.
And isn't it funny when you gain, but on the rise to success, people made funny comments. I remember the comments people used to make. How's your massage place doing? And
How's your beauty parlor?
beauty parlor.
How's your
And they
beauty
used
parlor
to prank
doing?
call your own family.
Same relatives, yeah.
Same relatives used to prank call the business and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I remember
But when
that.
you started to generate proper money and have the clinics in Knightsbridge and Thailand and all the ones in North London, how did their tune change?
Completely 360 degrees it changed. Yeah, it really changed. The way that even my own family, even my own husband, his mother-in-law, father-in-law, they all changed towards me as well. All of a sudden, "Oh, if Daksha's not coming, that's fine, she's working, no problem." Whereas before, I had to do everything. And even they looked down on me. And I have to say, now, it's actually quite sad that people change just because, of their view of your success.
It's funny that you mention that, because when I talk to people about social media, we talk about getting over the cringe mountain, which is basically you're making content of what a successful person would make, but actually nobody's looking. There's no comments, there's no likes, there's no views. But in order to be successful, you need to do it. But until you are successful, people think that,
Yeah.
they treat you differently. They think you're a nothing. And I
Yeah.
found that really interesting that I saw from you in particular 15 to 20 years of grinding away when it was, when nobody could see anything.
Yeah.
But everyone then changes their tune and be like, "Oh yeah, she was always going to make it. I always believed in you." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so your first job after MFI, you then went into the salesy thing.
I did.
What were you selling and what was the job like?
Do you know what? That job, I actually, because I had no qualifications, I just took on this sales job. Actually, first sales job I took on was selling encyclopedias in Germany. Right? It was like just anything to get away. Anything to get away. And it was just like, I didn't even know whether I was going to be any good, whether I could survive. I
How
didn't
old
know
are you?
anybody in Germany.
Could you speak German?
No.
Okay,
No.
so you're selling encyclopedias
Yes.
to native Germans,
I must have been about 16.
and you went on your own.
Yeah. But one thing I had was I had guts. right? I literally had guts, and I know I could fend for myself because I, from a very early age, I'd been fending for myself, right? So I didn't think, would I be safe? Would I be okay? Would I survive? I had very little money with me. I didn't think. I just did it. And you know what? I couldn't even sell in those days, right? It was only, I was a bit of furniture and MFI I was selling, right? I didn't know I could sell encyclopedias. And this was to sell it to army guys. But I was so good. I was the top salesperson in the world, right? I couldn't even believe it. They kept telling me that you're the top, you're the. Why? How? How? Me, little old me.
16-year-old selling encyclopedias
Yeah,
to the British Army or American Army
yeah,
in Germany.
yeah. But you know why I now realize 40, 50 years on, right? I now realize what made me good. In those days, I didn't know. What made me good was that I was always honest and I was relatable and I wasn't selling them something they wouldn't need. Because if I saw that they didn't have a child, didn't need it, I'd sort of say, no, I'm going to move on. Do you know a friend that could benefit from this rather than me trying to sell this to you? So I'd always, but I never knew that I was doing that. But it's only later on I realized that, you know what I did was I was looking after the person that I was selling to, right? So it wasn't for me a sales. If there's a need, if you're going to benefit from it, I'm going to give it to you. Otherwise, no, let me just move on. That's what, and they would recommend me. I'd go back to the same area a month later and I'd just ring them up and say, do you know anybody that could? And they'd always give me names. They'd always give me. So it wasn't hard sell. I never found, I don't know why I was the top. But that helped me a lot. That helps me today doing the job that I do. Because whenever clients come to me for injectables, whatever, I'm never selling them something they don't need. They're not overdone. So that stayed with me. That experience was the best in my life. You know, it made me strong.
And when did you then move on to the next? How long were you doing that for?
About a year.
And then you moved on to,
I came back,
yeah,
and because of that experience, I got a sales job.
yeah.
And again, I couldn't choose in those days what I would sell. So I got a job selling Tampax machines, sanitary towel machines, right, to men in the industry. And again,
That's a tough sell.
it was a tough sell. But you know, even then, I didn't think of it. It was a job for me. And I got a car with it, which, you know, every relative of mine was like, oh my God, she's got a car, brand new car. You know, none of them had. So it was like a status thing for me that I've achieved something in my life. I couldn't even drive and I got this car. So it was like, I learned to drive
You're still
properly.
working on the driving, aren't you?
No. So I learned to drive. I actually was visiting different territories. I started with Coventry, Birmingham, and those sort of territories. And I learned to knock on doors selling these machines.
So sorry, you were basically knocking on random people's doors and selling middle-aged men Tampax machines.
For the offices and hotels and yeah.
Were you good at that?
I was the top in the country after about 8 months. I kept getting every piece of furniture in my house was the gift vouchers that won because I was top. Every sort of holidays we had, we even had a holiday to Brazil and all of that where I'd collected vouchers. No, I was good. I was good.
And then, so you did that for quite a long time, right?
12 years.
Jeez, I didn't know
12
that.
years,
Did you know that? 12 years.
12 years.
I
Yeah.
didn't know
That was
that.
12 years.
And then you quit because of him.
I quit because I fell pregnant. It was getting really stressful because I was changing territory after territory and it was traveling a lot.
Yeah.
So I felt pregnant with Alex and I just had like a moment where I thought, you know what, I can't travel, do all of this. And it was getting very, to remain at the top for that long, I was putting pressure on myself daily. I would be like, because you know, it's not here every day, but at the end of the month, I know I have to reach that. So even when there was nothing in my columns, no, I had to open so many new accounts a week. That was pressure I was putting on myself, and the higher I got, the more pressure I was getting, and it was personal pressure, not the company, because
Yeah.
they trusted me. Then I thought, with this child, I don't want to have a child and be this stressed. So, in fact, they almost signed me off because of my stress. So I took that and I didn't know what to do. And I literally didn't know what else I would do because that's all I knew. And I believe something up there helps me a lot.
But you didn't have a spiritual anything
I
back then.
didn't. I didn't. I wasn't spiritual. I didn't even know what healing was, nothing. But I was without realizing, because one day I'm like for weeks thinking, what? And one day there was a college magazine came on the doorstep and it just fell from the letterbox and opened on a page.
What magazine was it?
It was one of the local magazines.
In Leicester?
No, Watford.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was just a local magazine and it fell open on hair and beauty page. And I had this aha moment and I thought, I could do that. I could do that. I actually quite liked hair, but I was rubbish at hair. So, because in those days we had these perms and to put those perm,
This is like
with
1980.
old ladies that had no hair.
Yeah, this is like 1988, right?
1993.
He was born in 89, so unlikely.
No, I did a 3-year course.
Oh,
So I took the course on.
oh,
And
so
then
you
I
took
did
the course on in 88, 89.
Yeah, and then
then
I
you finished.
finished. Yeah.
And did you use your, because what did you, was it a full-time course or were you working during it?
No, I was 2 days a week. I was doing a beauty course.
Saturday, Sunday?
Saturdays. No, it was during the week because I had a choice in my sales job. So I continued working part-time and then I continued the 2 days a week. After I had him, I just gave it up.
So
I gave up the job.
while you were pregnant with him, you were working 3 days a week, college 2 days a week.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you know what I used to, and after he was born as well, I used to study after he went to sleep. So I remember 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I'm getting my books out to study. And
Were you tired after the long days of selling?
I can never remember me feeling tired.
So you, and would you be excited to open those books, or you just knew you had a purpose? and
No, I actually, I knew I had a purpose. It wasn't like, oh, I'm passionate, but it was, no, I had a job to do and I just did the job. But I don't have this thing in my head. I don't have this, I have to do it or don't have to do it. If there's something to do, I just do it. I don't have like, I don't want to do it or I want to do it. It's...
Do you find that having a family gave you more drive, or it's always been the same?
I think it's personal. I think there's always the need to prove.
From your dad?
Yeah, I think
From everyone?
Yeah, from everyone. I think that goes back. I think that's been the thing that's key to my success, is having to prove. If I need a challenge, so if it's good, fine. But what's next?
Do you think, because you took over the oldest sister role, do you think that when that happened, that made you the provider in your own mind? Do you think that your drive would be different if things didn't happen the way they happened?
Yeah, it would be different. I had an older sister that passed away, and she was the mother in the family because my mother was never there. So after she passed away, I took on the role of mothering the other kids.
How old are you? Early 20s?
Yeah. Yeah, so I took on the role of mothering them, and I think that's what shaped me really. And then when I had you three, actually, I always thought having 3 kids would be harder than having one, but no.
Because the middle child held it all together.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
He was the glue and the gel of the family.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, yes.
He was so naughty, that child. He was so naughty.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when you were working all of these hours, were you, when you first got into the industry after college, you then had the choice to be an employee somewhere or go it alone? Having always been an employee, were you not tempted to stick to what was safe?
I actually started the little sort of salon in a leisure centre straight after my course.
In a what?
Cleaning cupboard.
Cleaning. It was a broom
Yeah.
cupboard.
It was
I've
a broom
seen
cupboard, yeah.
A broom cupboard
Yeah.
that they emptied out for you because they
Yeah.
could get rent off you.
Yes.
And then you put a little bed basically in it.
Yeah. I started there because I literally wanted to combine motherhood with, I wanted to look after Alex and be a mom and then go to work as well. So I would actually just in the morning put him into nursery, come back, bring him, and then go back again in the evening. So that's I wanted to do that. And then I just thought it was hard because, it was a cleaning cupboard with the door locked, nobody there. So
No
I had
windows, no nothing.
no windows,
Yeah.
nothing, and there's no passing trade, because I was at the end.
Mm.
So it was quite hard, and there were some days I was just struggling and praying that Lord and thinking, I need clients, I need clients. So what I started to do was go into the leisure centre, the gym. I used to go into the gym, and I used to say to the girls there, let me give you some free treatments. Right, and if you like the treatments, then you can recommend it to people that you're actually doing personal training for. That's how I started. The girls loved the treatment, and slowly, within like 8 to 12 months, fully booked.
Mm.
And then I thought, you know what, I'm doing well in here, but I don't know what it's like to work for someone else. So I went into Clements, that was like a store, and I thought, let me do 1 day a week in there just to learn more, right? Because I never felt I knew that much. So I went in there and I took a job on. I went into on a Saturday. Nobody there. I was actually asked to do a pedicure and I was asked to do a hydrodermy facial. I didn't know how to operate the machine. I didn't know how these products worked, and they were like, "Oh no, just work it out yourself." But there's no pedicure bowl. Where am I going to put their feet? Or just go and get a bowl from the sink. I'm like, no, you're a department store.
Does it still exist? I've never heard of it.
It then turned into Alders, and it was just like different, right?
Right.
So it did exist, and it was there for many years. But I'm like, is this how people are doing treatments out there, right? And I just never went back. I started to do well in my own place, and my clients were the ones that told me I was good, right? So it was like, and the more that I started to do treatments in there, the more my self-confidence was growing, because these clients were like really putting me on a pedestal. They were traveling from distances, they were like coming in so much, recommending, and I started to sort of believe in myself. And as I started to believe in myself, I found that my world just opened out. I went into healing, spiritual stuff, meditation, and I found somebody that actually I started to look up to and value, because I actually grew up not valuing myself. And I now really thank every single experience I've had in my life, whether it's selling encyclopedias to selling Tampax machines. I value everything because it's taught me to be who I am. I'm really strong because of it, right? And I just think that I want to help the salon owners that struggled. I want to help the girls that are, finding it hard. And I've had a lot of challenges. I want to help the mums, and I think the helping and giving was really important for me, right? It helped me almost like to give is actually, I always say to give is actually a blessing. You've got to be truly blessed in order to give, and you can only give if you have, right? So I think I'm in a position now where I still have aiming for more. I'm still not settling for where I am. I still think I'm at the age of 64. I'm just starting out. I've got the new product range out. I want to sort of expand out. I want to teach the salon owners sort of, skills that they're lacking in, skills that I've actually got experience in. So there's more to come. And I find now that side of it is more challenging. I don't want to do treatments anymore. I don't want to teach anymore.
So I always find it interesting that you're always a big risk taker. It seems from the outside.
Yeah.
And, there have been some small experiences when they haven't quite gone right, but also things that have gone really well. Like, you had a lot of proportionally a lot of revenue coming in from that broom cupboard that you were in.
Yeah, yeah.
You ended up juggling 2 little beds in it with people in the reception and all of that, with very low overheads in comparison.
Yes.
But then you decided to literally do the opposite and take on a 13-room place in St Albans with, 6 or 7 staff that you fired on day one.
Yeah.
So you had 13-room place
I
with
was
you on
working
your own.
in one room on my own, and that's how I built it up.
But why take that risk?
I don't have fear. I believe in myself. I know that if you put me into this street in a corner, I'll come out fighting. So I don't think, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? It's up to me. It's not the outside environment. It's not the climate. It's not the whatever. It's not outside of me. So I've always believed in myself, and I always sort of knew And I still know whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to make it work. So I don't look at that. I just don't. I had literally, when I moved into that big place, I had £7,000 in my bank account. I bought a microdermabrasion machine for 5,500 cash, which means I'm down to literally low. But I fired the staff because I went in before I bought the place and the staff were not. The girl that was doing my pedicure sort of went to me, either way, I work in Luton, you can come there too. So I'm like, do you even know who you're talking to? She didn't know I was going to buy the place, right? So it's almost like, based on that, I thought, you know what, forget it. I'll start from scratch, I'll start myself.
So when you told everyone you were taking on a place, your first big place, and then you had all the staff, and then you turned around and told whoever, I fired all the staff and I'm in this massive place on my own, did everyone just think,
Lost the plot, nuts. She's absolutely nuts. Kind of, at this point, husband just gave up on me anyways, like, whatever, she's not listening. But no, I think people just think it's not right.
what did you think? You're paying rent on all of these rooms that are empty. What are you thinking?
I can make it work. I'm going to make it
But
work. I'm going to start with one room at a time. And I did. So I was working day and night, right? And I bought in enough
What
to
do you
pay
reckon?
the bills.
16 hours a day?
No, not 16. I used to finish at 11.
11.
So I went in the morning, dropped the kids off at school, picked them up at 3 o'clock, fed them, went out at 5:30 again, came back at 11. And weekends, obviously, I had your dad to look after you guys, so I was working weekends. But I never thought that
So
it
you were
was
doing it
just...
7 days a week?
I was, but I never thought that, I don't remember feeling tired. I don't remember feeling ill. I didn't see the big deal in it, literally.
Yeah.
But now I can't do it now. Ask me now, I said, no, thank you, I can't do it.
Yeah, but I still think you probably do, in a month, you probably still work 28 days in the month.
I do, but it's different work. This is
Yeah,
easy.
I know,
For me,
but...
it's easy, this is a doddle, what I do.
Yeah, okay, fair.
Compared to my hard work was doing clients back to back to back, and I was doing a lot of massages, right, and giving and healing and Reiki and reflexology, and I was giving a lot.
Do you find a piece of your energy goes when you do these sort of very manual?
I actually worked out, because in those days I was doing healing as well. I worked out a way of bringing the energy in, and as the energy is coming into me, it's servicing me, it's actually helping me to keep well, and then it just goes out into the client, right? So no, it was helping me.
And you always say that your best work was done in those years.
Yeah, I do.
That 10-year to 15-year period.
As a therapist, I did my best work then. As a teacher, I did my best work in the first 5 years of teaching. Yeah.
And that was when you had 2 in St Albans and 2 in Finchley.
Yeah.
And you were juggling at one point all of those staff, plus doing the treatments, plus being a business owner with no qualifications.
I was doing my VAT, I was doing my accounts, I was doing everything. I was
and
paying
you were
my
doing
bills.
it on the floor, on paper, for years and years and years. Yeah. And then from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. every single day on the computer doing PowerPoints and typing like this on Word. Crazy, right?
I feel sorry for myself actually now.
Coming down the stairs and hearing screaming at 4 or 5 a.m. saying I've deleted everything was a regular occurrence, weekly.
Yeah.
You really did do it the hard way, didn't you? Did you ever?
I did.
And the thing is, what's funny is you look back and then I would always say, like, why didn't you take people on? But then we go back over the years and you think the people that we did take on for those roles, it was a disaster.
It was a disaster.
It was a disaster. And then, now that I've started to realise owning your own infrastructure and understanding every part of the business is fundamental to being a business owner, because when you rely on other people...
But I tell you one thing, you might have a business, right? But no one teaches you how to manage people. There's no one that tells you how to manage. They were running rings around me. I remember a therapist in St Albans. It was just the two of us. That was the first therapist I employed, right? Just the two of us. She a bit experienced, right? Comes in and she said, actually, I'm going to Boots to get my lunch, right? Can you just do this massage client when they come in? I didn't think anything of it. Now, if anyone said that to me, I'd fire her on the spot, right? She's telling me to do the client while she goes and picks up her lunch at 11 o'clock. So I've learned a lot. They've just...
How do you think you learn? I
I
learn.
got slapped in the face 10 times before I learned.
You learn through mistakes.
A lot. Yeah. And then I just began, and they would come in, I would teach them everything. Then they would leave, set up their own places. And next thing I know, taking my clients with them. It was like, that was a many.
When business owners get worried about employees taking their
Yeah.
clients, what do you say to that?
I had that happen to me many times in the earlier days, but it doesn't happen to me now. It hasn't happened to me in the last 15 years, right? Why? Because I changed the way. First of all, I don't take on experienced staff. I never take on girls that have got experience. They've got qualification. I bring them on and I train them myself. And I employ people. I don't employ certificates or insurance, right? That person, I will grow her, right? And I employ her on her attributes, her energy, her passion, her, and then I give her everything I've got. And it's worked for me. It's worked for me. I've got Michaela, who's been with me 17 years. I had Lucy that was with me for 14 years. I had Katia 10 years.
Auntie.
Lena was 20 years.
Especially in this high turnover
yeah,
business.
and the other girls been doing Nikita 5, 6, 7 years. So I developed a way to actually retain staff. And that was unique to me. I fed them, I gave them certificates, I nurtured them, and that came natural to me. I wasn't doing it to keep them. I was doing it because that's what made me feel good.
If you could go back in time to the days when you struggled the most, which was probably that second Finchley Academy, when you had all of the businesses being juggled and everything wasn't quite working out, what would
you were a brat. You were a total brat.
What? How? I would have been about 13.
Yeah, you were a total brat at that age.
Brat means fun for the new lingo people.
Yeah.
What would you have told yourself during the hardest, darkest points?
I would have told myself not to take on so many businesses, I would actually say, take your favorite place, stay there and make that work rather than run from one to another, because I had 2 days there, 2 days there, 3 days here, and then 2 days, in the academy. So I was doing this and I made it all work and nobody knew. Do you know something? Nobody ever knew. My 11 o'clock client never knew I'd not had lunch, because I don't feel that it's right for them to know anyway. And I really managed well. But now I would sort of say to myself, I now go home, right? 5:30, I'm gone, right? I'm not booking the 6 o'clock client anymore.
Do you think you can build a business with that attitude?
Um,
Now it's all well and good doing it.
no, I think you got to do what it takes.
So if you were giving your advice to yourself
Okay,
back
so if
then,
I was giving my advice, what I would say was don't take on. I shouldn't have taken on 3 places and an academy single-handedly running it all, right? And if you are going to take it on, then make sure that you've actually got people taking care of the places and you are only focusing on a part of it. I was doing everything. And no, I would just say it's really being hard on yourself. Right.
Now-
and that's why I think my family life just suffered a bit.
now the biggest thing that people are talking about nowadays is work-life balance. Do you
They got too much life balance. I'm telling you, there's too much life balance.
think
People just
you-
don't work.
do you think you can build successful businesses with the whole work-life? What do you think it takes? Do you think there has to be a sacrifice there, or do you think it's possible to do the whole 9 to 5 and weekends and all that sort of stuff when building businesses?
I think the only answer I can give you is depending on the arena that you're in, you've got to go with that. I'll give you a classic example. My brother-in-law, he had an estate agency, right? His estate agency was busiest Saturday and Sunday. It was busiest. What does he do? He takes Saturday and Sunday off and he lets his staff run Saturday and Sunday, and he went underground, right? Wrong. You should have been there Saturday and Sunday making that work. Your staff should have been there during the week, right? And then it would have worked. So it depends on the business and it depends on you. I've always sort of, I've adapted. Now I don't need to work until 11 o'clock now, because then I needed to, because the clients in those days didn't have flexi time. They were coming in after work, they were coming in at weekends, so I had to do it. Now everybody's on flexi time and they're coming in. When you say come in at lunchtime on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're doing it because they're working flexi time. So I can do that now, but in those days I couldn't. I was the first one in this country in a salon to actually start doing Saturdays and Sundays and evenings. Nobody else did it. My mentality was my off license. We had an off license and we worked till 10 o'clock. So for me, it was nothing different. So I carried on, and then the others would see in St. Albans, others would see that I was fully booked in the evenings and weekends. The clients were coming to me. So they all started opening, and then we had this Sunday opening legally. So that's how it started. But I always think any business owner, you've got to go with whatever your business demands. You can't be having airs and graces. You can't.
And what do you think about if somebody came to you as a 16, 17-year-old, meek, quiet, no self-confidence, no education, not coming from a good family background, but they know, they could achieve something, or maybe they don't. What would you say to them? Basically, your 16-year-old self who was told you're worthless.
I would take her on and I would take her to the top. And I did that with Michaela. Right? Michaela came to me at 17. 17 years later, she's the academy manager here, and she's actually my best teacher. Michaela was so shy, she wouldn't even do a client. She's hiding behind a corner. I haven't got confidence. I built her up, and to me, honest, that to me is my soul work. I'm not doing this as a business. I'm doing something my soul wants to do. So I along the way, have helped a lot of people, whether it's clients, whether it's students, whether it's therapists. And I feel that that's what's kept me going. This is why I didn't feel that I was actually working. I was tired because I was seeing people really good from what I was doing, and the praise that I got from them was my food. Because I'd never had praise in my life. So, all these clients coming back and saying, "Oh, Daksha, you're amazing. You're this." One of them had a back problem, and I used to do like really fixing, right? She had a back problem. She couldn't even walk. She tried everyone, chiropractor, physios, doctors, everyone. I got her well, right? And she could never thank me enough. And I'd like, this woman would have been crippled, right? And if I can do that for somebody, that for me was like, reward enough. And over the years, many stories to tell. And I think that's what kept me going. So, when I was coming home at 11, I was coming home because I actually did well for somebody else.